The unfaithful husband arrived at the funeral holding hands with his mistress, carrying the documents for the sale of the company, fully convinced he would inherit everything. But in the middle of the ceremony, the lawyer stood up and, with a firm voice, revealed what the wife had done while fighting alone against the illness that was consuming her. The setting sun cast long shadows across the Phoenix skyline, painting the glass facades of downtown buildings in hues of amber and gold. Inside the corner office of Anderson & Associates Medical Equipment, William Bill Anderson squinted at the quarterly financial reports on his desk. His free hand loosened his tie as he pressed his cell phone to his ear. "Yeah, we're up 12% over last quarter," he said, a smile creeping across his face. "At this rate, we'll hit 5 million by year's end." He swiveled his chair toward the window, his back to the door. I know. It's what I've been telling the board for months. My marketing strategy is finally paying off." He paused, listening to the voice on the other end. His smile widened. "Tonight? I told Jennifer I have a supplier meeting, the usual place at 8. His voice dropped to a whisper. "I can't wait to see you either, Amanda." Bill ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket, just as his assistant knocked and entered with another stack of reports. He quickly composed himself, straightening his tie and adopting the commanding presence that had become his trademark in the Phoenix business community. At 42, William Anderson cut an impressive figure. Standing 6'2" with broad shoulders and a full head of salt and pepper hair, he exuded the confidence of a self-made man. His custom suits, Italian leather shoes and the Rolex Submariner on his wrist were calculated signals of his success, badges of honor in his personal war against mediocrity. Born to middle-class parents in Tucson, Bill had clawed his way up through sheer determination and an unrelenting ambition that sometimes bordered on ruthlessness. His handshake was firm, his gaze direct, and his voice carried the practiced authority of someone accustomed to being heard. In business circles throughout the Southwest, Bill Anderson was known as a visionary, someone who could spot opportunities where others saw only risk. What most people didn't know was that Bill's success had been built on a foundation laid by someone else, his wife of 17 years, Jennifer Marie Anderson. Across town in the research and development department of their company headquarters, Jennifer Anderson examined a prototype ventilator with methodical precision. Her delicate fingers traced the contours of the device as she made notes on her tablet. At 39, Jennifer possessed a quiet intensity that contrasted sharply with her husband's bombastic approach to business. "The ergonomics need work," she told the development team gathered around her. "The control panel should be intuitive enough for a nurse to operate even during high-stress situations. Remember, these machines aren't just products, they're lifelines." The team nodded respectfully. Unlike Bill, Jennifer never needed to raise her voice to command attention. Her Stanford MBA and natural gift for operational logistics had earned her the respect of everyone from the warehouse staff to the executive board. With her auburn hair typically pulled back in a practical ponytail and minimal makeup enhancing her intelligent green eyes, Jennifer favored function over flash, a philosophy that extended to every aspect of her life. "Let's reconfigure and have another prototype ready by next Friday," she concluded, offering an encouraging smile to the lead engineer. "This is promising work. We're getting closer." As the team dispersed, Jennifer checked her watch. Another late night for Bill, apparently. His supplier meetings had become increasingly frequent over the past few months. A subtle frown crossed her features before she pushed the thought aside and focused on the task at hand. 15 years earlier, the Anderson & Associates Medical Equipment Company had been nothing more than an ambitious business plan drafted on the kitchen table of their starter home. Jennifer had just graduated with her MBA, and Bill had been working in medical equipment sales for a national company. "We can do this better," Bill had insisted one night, pacing their small living room. "These big companies don't care about innovation or quality, just quarterly profits." Jennifer had looked up from her laptop, where she'd been drafting their business model. "If we're going to do this, we need to focus on niche markets first. Start with specialized respiratory equipment, where the big players are weak." That night had set the pattern for their partnership, Bill's aggressive vision tempered by Jennifer's strategic pragmatism. They secured a small business loan, rented a modest warehouse space, and hired their first 3 employees. Bill handled sales and client relationships, leveraging his industry contacts and natural charisma. Jennifer managed operations, finances, and product development, creating systems that would scale as they grew. The synergy between them was perfect. Bill's boldness paired with Jennifer's meticulous planning. They complemented each other in ways that extended beyond business into their personal life. Where he was impulsive, she was thoughtful. When she hesitated, he pushed forward. Together they seemed invincible. The company grew steadily, expanding from respiratory equipment to a full range of specialized medical devices. By their 10th anniversary, Anderson & Associates had become one of the leading suppliers in the Southwest, with contracts at major hospitals across Arizona, New Mexico, and parts of California and Texas. Their annual revenue had reached $4.5 million, and they employed over 50 people. Success, however, began to change the dynamics of their relationship. As the company's public face, Bill increasingly basked in the spotlight. Industry awards, speaking engagements, and feature articles in business magazines fed his growing ego. Jennifer, meanwhile, remained behind the scenes, content to ensure that the company ran smoothly while her husband enjoyed the accolades. The first real fracture appeared during the company's 10th anniversary celebration. The Phoenix Business Journal had sent a reporter to cover the milestone, and Bill had dominated the interview. "I always knew there was a gap in the market," he told the reporter, leaning back in his chair. "When I developed our first line of portable ventilators, the orders came flooding in." Jennifer, seated beside him, had raised an eyebrow but said nothing. The ventilator line had been her initiative, developed during 6 months of research and countless late nights. But she let the comment slide, as she had so many times before. That evening, in the privacy of their Scottsdale home, she finally confronted him. "You didn't develop that ventilator line, Bill. That was my project from concept to production." Bill had waved dismissively. "It's all semantics, Jen. We're a team, remember? Besides, the market responds better to a single visionary. It's just business." "Is it?" she'd asked quietly. The question hung in the air between them, unanswered. The tension continued to build as their success grew. At an important board meeting 6 months later, Jennifer presented a comprehensive strategy for expanding into the Midwest market. The presentation represented weeks of research, including detailed competition analysis and profit projections. When she finished, Bill stood up. "Thanks, Jennifer, for that overview. Now let me explain how we're actually going to execute this plan." For the next 30 minutes, he essentially repackaged Jennifer's ideas as his own, adding unnecessary flourishes and taking credit for her most innovative approaches. The board members nodded appreciatively, directing their questions to Bill rather than Jennifer. She sat silently, her face a mask of professional composure, while something cold and hard formed in the pit of her stomach. Later, when a board member congratulated Bill on his brilliant strategy, Jennifer watched her husband accept the praise without even a glance in her direction. It was during the aftermath of this meeting that Amanda Taylor entered their lives. The board had suggested hiring a financial consultant to advise on the Midwest expansion, and Amanda came highly recommended. At 31, Amanda Taylor possessed the kind of calculated beauty that commanded attention in any room. Her blonde hair fell in perfect waves around a heart-shaped face, and her business attire somehow managed to be both professional and suggestive. With an MBA from Columbia and experience at a prestigious New York consulting firm, her credentials were impeccable. "I'm thrilled to be working with Anderson & Associates," she said during her initial presentation, her eyes lingering on Bill. "Your reputation for innovation precedes you, Mr. Anderson." Jennifer noticed the immediate chemistry between them, the extended eye contact, the slightly too friendly smiles, the way Amanda seemed to direct her insights exclusively toward Bill, despite Jennifer's equal ownership of the company. "I believe we can increase your profit margin by at least 18% in the first year of expansion," Amanda concluded, closing her laptop with a satisfied smile. "With the right partnership, of course." The word hung in the air, laden with meaning. "Impressive analysis, Ms. Taylor," Bill said, extending his hand. "I look forward to working closely with you on this project." Jennifer watched their handshake last several seconds longer than necessary, a familiar knot tightening in her chest. 3 weeks later, Jennifer was working late at the office when she heard Bill's voice from the conference room. The door was slightly ajar, and she paused as she heard a female laugh, low and intimate. "You're incredible, Bill," Amanda's voice purred. "The way you handled that negotiation today, I've never seen anything like it." "Just doing what I do best," Bill replied, his voice carrying that special tone Jennifer hadn't heard directed at her in months. "Your vision for this company is remarkable," Amanda continued. "You deserve so much credit for building all this." Jennifer moved closer to the door, her heart pounding. "Sometimes I feel like I'm not getting the recognition I deserve," Bill admitted. "I've been carrying this company for years." "I can see that," Amanda said softly. "Some people just don't appreciate true business genius when they see it." There was a pause, and Jennifer risked a glance through the crack in the door. What she saw sent a wave of cold reality washing over her. Bill and Amanda stood near the presentation board, their bodies close, his hand resting on her waist in a gesture that couldn't possibly be professional. "I should go," Amanda whispered. "But I'm staying at the Palomar Hotel, room 712 if you want to discuss the expansion further." Bill smiled, his eyes dark with intention. "I think we have a lot more to discuss. I'll be there at 8. Jennifer silently retreated to her office, gathering her things with trembling hands. The evidence of what was happening was undeniable, yet somehow seeing it unfold made it both more real and more surreal. 15 years of partnership, business and marriage, and this was what it had come to. On her drive home, alone in the privacy of her car, Jennifer finally allowed the tears to fall, not just for the betrayal, but for the painful recognition of how far they had drifted from the couple who had once planned a future together, over a kitchen table covered in dreams. At precisely 8 o'clock that evening, Bill texted her, "Supplier meeting running late. Don't wait up." Jennifer stared at the message on her phone screen, the final confirmation of what she already knew. Across town, in room 712 of the Palomar Hotel, her husband and Amanda Taylor were beginning an affair that would ultimately change everything, in ways none of them could possibly imagine. Over the following months, Bill's affair with Amanda evolved from furtive hotel meetings to a barely disguised relationship. Their business dinners extended well into the night, and Amanda became a fixture at company events, always positioned strategically at Bill's side, while Jennifer was relegated to the periphery. "You're essentially running this company single-handedly," Amanda told Bill over drinks at an upscale Scottsdale bar. They'd long abandoned any pretense of discussing actual business. "Jennifer's contribution is administrative at best." Bill nodded, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "I've built this from the ground up. The vision has always been mine." "And she's holding you back," Amanda added, her manicured fingers trailing across the back of his hand. "You could be expanding nationally by now if you were making all the decisions." These whispered affirmations became a constant refrain in their relationship. Amanda systematically reinforced Bill's inflated sense of importance while planting seeds of resentment toward Jennifer. With each meeting, his revisionist history of the company's success became more entrenched, a narrative where Jennifer's contributions diminished while his own grew more heroic. "We should look at the Las Vegas market," Amanda suggested during one of their rendezvous. "I have connections there, industry people with deep pockets. The medical equipment needs for the casino industry alone could double your revenue." "Our revenue," Bill corrected, pulling her closer. Amanda smiled, her ambition barely concealed behind perfect teeth. "Of course, our future is looking very promising." While Bill's affair flourished, Jennifer faced a battle of her own. It began with occasional muscle cramps and a slight weakness in her right hand. Nothing alarming at first, just minor inconveniences she attributed to stress and overwork. Then came the morning when she dropped her coffee mug for no apparent reason. The ceramic shattered across the kitchen floor, dark liquid splashing her bare feet. She stared at her hand in confusion, flexing fingers that had suddenly become strangers. More incidents followed, a persistent muscle twitch in her shoulder, difficulty turning door handles, a subtle slurring when she was tired. Each symptom on its own seemed minor, but together they formed a pattern that became impossible to ignore. Dr. Eleanor Chen's office at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix was decorated with academic credentials and family photos, a calculated balance of professionalism and humanity. Jennifer sat alone in one of the comfortable chairs, facing the neurologist across a polished desk. Bill had been unavoidably detained by an emergency client meeting. "We've completed all the tests, Mrs. Anderson," Dr. Chen said gently. "I'm afraid the electromyography and nerve conduction studies confirm our suspicions." Jennifer nodded stiffly, already sensing what was coming. "You have amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS." Dr. Chen's voice was compassionate but direct. It's a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord. Lou Gehrig's disease, Jennifer said quietly. Yes, the progression varies from person to person, but the condition does cause progressive muscle weakness that eventually affects breathing, swallowing, and speaking. Jennifer's analytical mind immediately began processing implications, while her emotions remained suspended in a strange, protective numbness. Timeline? Dr. Chen hesitated. It's difficult to predict with certainty. Based on your current progression rate, I would estimate 2 to 3 years before the symptoms become severely limiting. The words hung in the sterile air between them. 2 to 3 years. A business plan could be executed in that time. A new product line developed. But a life, a marriage, is there any treatment? A cure? Jennifer asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it. There are medications that can marginally slow progression and treatments to manage symptoms. But no, there's no cure currently. Research is ongoing and clinical trials. What about my cognitive functions? Jennifer interrupted, her mind racing ahead to practical concerns. Your mind will remain intact, Dr. Chen assured her. ALS doesn't typically affect cognitive abilities. Many patients maintain sharp intellectual function, even in advanced stages. A small mercy, Jennifer thought bitterly. She would remain fully aware as her body failed her. Bill's reaction to the diagnosis revealed more about their marriage than any counseling session could have. He received the news with a practiced expression of concern, his arm around Jennifer's shoulders as she explained what Dr. Chen had told her. We'll get through this together, he promised, his voice hitting all the right notes of supportive husband. Whatever you need, I'm here. But later that night, Jennifer overheard him on the phone in his home office, the door not quite closed. It's ALS, he was saying quietly. 2 to 3 years, the doctor thinks. I know it's terrible. But listen, this changes our timeline. No, she's still sharp mentally, that's the problem. She'll still want input on company decisions. Jennifer stood frozen in the hallway, her heart constricting more painfully than any muscle cramp could cause. Let me handle it, Bill continued. I'll start transitioning her out gradually. The board will understand. It's for her own good, reducing stress during her illness. She retreated silently to their bedroom, lying awake long after Bill joined her, maintaining the careful distance that had become normal between them. In the darkness, Jennifer confronted the stark reality of her situation. Not only was her body beginning to fail her, but the person who had vowed to stand by her in sickness and in health was already planning his exit strategy. True to his word, Bill began the process of systematically removing Jennifer from company operations. It started subtly. Meetings rescheduled when she had medical appointments, decisions made during calls she wasn't included on, her name gradually disappearing from important communications. You need to focus on your health, Bill insisted when she confronted him. The company will be fine, I've got everything under control. At a special board meeting, Bill presented himself as the devoted husband, making difficult choices. As you all know, my wife is facing a challenging health journey, he announced solemnly. After careful consideration, we've decided that Jennifer will be stepping back from day-to-day operations to focus on her treatment. The "we" was a masterful touch, Jennifer had to admit. None of the board members questioned whether this had been a mutual decision. They offered sympathetic nods and supportive comments while effectively approving her corporate exile. Within weeks, Jennifer found herself an outsider in the company she had co-founded. Her office remained untouched, a shrine to her past contributions, but real decisions now happened elsewhere. Meanwhile, Amanda Taylor's consulting role expanded to fill the vacuum, giving her unprecedented access to company operations and, more importantly, to Bill. As Jennifer's physical condition deteriorated, the need for specialized care became apparent. Her doctor recommended several home health aides, but one candidate stood out from the rest. Rosa Martinez was 35, with warm brown eyes and capable hands that moved with confident precision. Born in Mexico City and educated in the United States, she had specialized in palliative and hospice care after losing her mother to cancer. I believe dignity is a fundamental right, especially during illness, Rosa explained during her interview in the Andersons' living room. My job is not just medical support, but helping patients maintain their sense of self and purpose. Jennifer hired her immediately, Recognizing something essential in Rosa's approach, she saw the person, not just the disease. Bill, of course, was relieved. This is perfect. With Rosa handling things here, I can focus on keeping the business running smoothly. His thinly veiled enthusiasm for having Jennifer's care outsourced wasn't lost on either woman. Rosa quickly became more than a caregiver. In the quiet afternoons when Bill was at the office, or more likely, with Amanda, Jennifer and Rosa developed a friendship based on mutual respect and surprising common ground. "You studied business at Stanford?" Rosa asked one day while helping Jennifer with her physical therapy exercises. "MBA," Jennifer confirmed, wincing as she worked to maintain strength in her weakening grip. "And you?" "Nursing at Arizona State, then specialized certification in palliative care. But I always wanted to understand the healthcare system better, so I took night classes in healthcare administration." This revelation led to long discussions about the intersection of business and healthcare, the ethical challenges of medical equipment pricing, and the gaps in patient-centered design, conversations Jennifer had once imagined having with Bill, but now found more stimulating with Rosa. "The ventilator prototype you were developing before," Rosa began one afternoon. "You know about that?" Jennifer asked, surprised. "I saw the designs in your home office. The ergonomic interface would make a real difference for nurses. Most medical equipment is designed by engineers who've never spent a 12-hour shift caring for patients." Jennifer smiled, a rare, genuine expression in recent months. "That's exactly the problem I was trying to solve." These conversations became a lifeline for Jennifer, a reminder that her mind remained sharp, even as her body betrayed her. Rosa treated her not as a patient, but as a colleague, a friend, and increasingly, a confidant. Meanwhile, Bill's unilateral control of the company led to decisions that increasingly diverged from Jennifer's vision. The careful growth strategy she had developed was abandoned in favor of aggressive expansion. Quality control standards were relaxed to increase production speed. Longtime employees who had been loyal to Jennifer found themselves marginalized or replaced. "He's completely rebranding the respiratory line," Jennifer told Rosa one evening after reviewing company reports on her tablet. The weakness in her hands had progressed, making the simple act of swiping through documents a challenge. Those products were designed for quality and longevity, not profit margin. Rosa adjusted Jennifer's position in the ergonomic chair they'd recently purchased. "Can you stop him? Technically, I still own 50% of the company, but practically?" Jennifer shook her head slightly, the movement requiring more effort each week. "He's convinced the board that my condition makes me unreliable. Any opposition from me would be attributed to my illness, affecting my judgment." The cruel irony wasn't lost on either of them. Jennifer's mind remained her greatest asset, yet it was the one thing Bill had managed to discredit without evidence. Bill's behavior at home had changed as dramatically as his business decisions. His late meetings became more frequent. His phone calls were always taken in another room. When he was home, his interaction with Jennifer was performative at best. Brief inquiries about her health delivered with the distracted air of someone checking a task off a list. One evening, Jennifer asked Rosa to help her to bed early, sensing Bill would not be home until late. Through the partially open bedroom door, she heard his arrival just after midnight. Not alone. "She's asleep by now," Bill's voice carried down the hallway. "The nurse gives her medication at 9. "You're sure it's safe?" Amanda's voice pitched low but still distinct. "Completely. She takes sleeping pills. Besides, her room is at the other end of the house." The casual cruelty of bringing his mistress into their home sliced through Jennifer more painfully than any physical symptom she'd experienced. They passed by her door, Amanda giggling softly as they moved toward Bill's new bedroom down the hall. A practical arrangement, he'd explained, so her medical equipment wouldn't disturb his sleep. Jennifer lay awake, listening to the muffled sounds of their conversation and eventual silence. Tears slid down her cheeks, not for the loss of her husband's love, that had evaporated long before, but for the complete erasure of her dignity. In Bill's mind, she was already gone, an inconvenient ghost haunting the periphery of his new life. The next morning, Jennifer woke to find a strand of long blonde hair on the hallway carpet outside her room. Proof, as if she needed it, that she wasn't imagining the extent of Bill's betrayal. She stared at it for a long moment before Rosa arrived and quietly disposed of the evidence, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. "He doesn't even try to hide it anymore," Jennifer said, her voice slightly slurred from the progression of her symptoms. Rosa's expression hardened with protective anger. Men like that believe they can take whatever they want without consequences. Maybe they can, Jennifer replied, a new resolve forming behind her words. But not forever. The progression of ALS was both cruelly predictable and uniquely devastating. 6 months after her diagnosis, Jennifer's speech had deteriorated to the point where even Rosa sometimes struggled to understand her. The muscular atrophy in her hands made writing impossible, and walking required a motorized wheelchair that Bill had purchased with an efficiency that felt more like settling an inconvenient business expense than supporting his wife. Dr. Chen introduced Jennifer to various assistive technologies during a particularly difficult appointment. This eye-tracking system allows you to type by looking at letters on a screen, she explained, demonstrating the sleek tablet with its specialized software. And this voice synthesizer can be programmed to sound similar to your natural speaking voice using recordings we made earlier. Jennifer tested the device, her eyes moving deliberately across the virtual keyboard. The computerized voice that emerged from the speaker was eerily familiar yet distinctly artificial. "This will help me communicate as my speech worsens," the synthesized voice announced. The disconnect between the mechanical sound and the very human emotion behind the words struck everyone in the room. "There are also mobile versions," Dr. Chen continued gently. "You can mount them on your wheelchair for use anywhere." Jennifer nodded, already adapting to her new reality, with the same methodical approach she had once applied to business challenges. By the end of the week, Rosa had helped her master the basics of the system, and Jennifer had customized the interface to maximize efficiency, reorganizing the keyboard layout and programming shortcut commands for common phrases. "You've made this thing sing," Rosa observed, watching Jennifer navigate the system with increasing speed. "Technology has always been about adaptation," Jennifer's synthesized voice replied. "The device adapts to me, I adapt to it, like any good partnership." The word partnership hung in the air between them, a painful reminder of what Jennifer's marriage had once been and what it had become. With Jennifer effectively silenced by her illness, Bill grew increasingly bold in his relationship with Amanda. She now attended all major company functions as his executive consultant, a title that fooled no one but maintained the thinnest veneer of professional propriety. At the company's annual Client Appreciation Gala, Bill didn't even attempt to maintain appearances. While Jennifer sat in her wheelchair in a corner of the ballroom, Bill and Amanda dominated the dance floor, their bodies pressed inappropriately close as they swayed to the music. Board members and employees exchanged uncomfortable glances, but no one intervened. Rosa, who had accompanied Jennifer to the event as both caregiver and companion, watched the display with barely concealed disgust. "Would you like to leave?" she asked quietly. Jennifer shook her head slightly. The movement required significant effort, but her eyes remained fixed on her husband and his mistress. She was documenting everything, storing away each slight and humiliation like evidence for a trial only she knew was coming. Later that evening, Bill approached their table with Amanda in tow, his arm casually draped around her waist. "Jennifer, you look tired," he announced loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Rosa should take you home to rest. Amanda and I need to circulate a bit more. Some potential investors from Las Vegas are here." Jennifer's eyes met Amanda's, and for a brief moment, something like guilt flickered across the younger woman's face before being replaced by her usual calculated smile. "Don't worry about us," Amanda added with artificial sweetness. "Bill is in good hands." As Rosa wheeled her toward the exit, Jennifer heard the whispers trailing behind them, pitying comments about poor Jennifer and such a devoted husband, considering everything. The narrative Bill had carefully constructed of the tragically ill wife and the selflessly supportive husband soldiering on with business had been swallowed whole by their social circle. The pivotal moment came on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the gala. Bill had installed a baby monitor in Jennifer's room for safety, though both women understood it was more about surveillance than care. What Bill didn't realize was that the monitor system worked both ways. Jennifer could hear conversations in the kitchen when the receiver was active. Rosa had stepped out to pick up medication from the pharmacy, and Jennifer was resting when she heard the front door open and close. Bill's voice, followed by Amanda's, carried clearly through the monitor. "Is she asleep?" Amanda asked. "Probably." "It doesn't matter. She can't exactly get up and interrupt us," Bill replied with a callousness that still had the power to wound. Jennifer reached for her communication device, lowering the volume on the voice synthesizer as she typed a command to record the conversation. "So what did the specialist say?" Amanda's voice again, now coming from the kitchen. Not good news for Jennifer, but... Bill paused, and Jennifer could picture the dismissive shrug that typically accompanied his discussion of her illness. "The progression is accelerating. They're saying 3 months, maybe less." Jennifer felt her breath catch. Her most recent evaluation had indeed shown faster deterioration, but hearing Bill discuss her death so clinically sent ice through her veins. "What about the Vegas deal?" Amanda asked. "Should we hold off until she's gone?" "No, we need to have everything lined up. I've already spoken with the investment group. They're willing to pay $5.2 million for the company. Cash deal, minimal complications." Jennifer's mind raced. Bill was planning to sell Anderson and Associates. Her company, her legacy, her life's work. "That's incredible," Amanda gushed. "And once the sale goes through, we'll be free. No more pretending. No more Phoenix. No more playing the devoted husband. We'll have the cash and a fresh start in Vegas, with your contacts in the casino medical supply business." "And the timeline?" Bill's voice lowered, but the monitor picked up every devastating word. "It won't be long now. The doctors say she has 3 months at most. As soon as she's gone, we finalize the sale and start our real life together. That money will give us total freedom, Amanda." "To us," Amanda said, the sound of clinking glasses carrying through the monitor. "And to new beginnings." "Just a little longer," Bill added. "Then everything we've planned will happen." The monitor fell silent as they moved to another part of the house. Jennifer lay motionless, the full weight of the betrayal crushing down on her. Not only was Bill waiting for her to die, he was actively planning to erase every trace of her from the company she had helped build. The tears came then, silent, agonizing tears that traced paths down her increasingly gaunt face. For the first time since her diagnosis, Jennifer allowed herself to feel the totality of her losses: her health, her marriage, her dignity, and now her professional legacy. When Rosa returned an hour later, she found Jennifer still weeping, the recording playing on a loop through her communication device. "He's selling the company," the synthetic voice announced as Jennifer typed frantically. "He's waiting for me to die so he can sell everything and run away with her." Rosa set down the medication bags and knelt beside the wheelchair, taking Jennifer's frail hands in hers. "We won't let that happen," she promised fiercely. That night, alone in her room, Jennifer stared at the ceiling as her analytical mind began to reassert itself through the fog of emotional pain. The company was legally half hers. Her name was on every founding document, every bank account, every patent. Bill couldn't sell without her consent, not while she was alive. But he was clearly counting on assuming full control after her death. Using her eye-tracking device, Jennifer began researching business succession law, focusing on partner rights in Arizona. She worked through the night, pausing only when her eyes grew too tired to accurately control the cursor. By morning, she had compiled a substantial file of legal precedents and options. The questions she faced were dauntingly complex. Could she force a sale of her share before death? Could she legally block Bill from selling afterward? Could she designate her portion to someone who would honor her wishes? One name kept appearing in her research: Thomas Wright, an attorney who specialized in business succession and had written several articles on partner disputes. His reputation for handling sensitive corporate matters discreetly made him the perfect candidate for what Jennifer now knew she needed to do. Using her communication device, she composed an email to Wright's office, deliberately sending it from a new private account rather than her company address. The message was simple and direct. "I need legal counsel regarding protection of business assets in a partner dispute situation complicated by terminal illness. Discretion is essential. Can you meet privately at my home?" Wright's response came within hours. "Mrs. Anderson, I would be happy to consult with you. Given your situation, I can come to your residence. Would tomorrow at 2 p.m. work?" Jennifer confirmed the appointment, then deleted the exchange from her device's history. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of purpose returning, a reminder that while her body was failing, her mind remained sharp and determined. Thomas Wright arrived precisely at 2 p.m. the following day, during Bill's regular golf game with potential clients. The attorney was in his early 60s, with silver-streaked hair and the measured movements of someone who carefully considered each action before taking it, a quality Jennifer had always valued. Rosa showed him to Jennifer's room, where her wheelchair had been positioned near the window overlooking the desert landscape beyond their property. "Mrs. Anderson?" Wright greeted her with a respectful nod, showing no visible reaction to her physical condition. "How can I assist you today?" Using her communication device, Jennifer explained the situation. Her 50% ownership of Anderson and Associates, her terminal diagnosis, and Bill's plans to sell the company immediately after her death. "I want to protect what I built," the synthesized voice stated flatly. "He's waiting for me to die so he can erase my contribution." Wright listened without interruption, taking minimal notes in a small leather-bound notebook. When Jennifer finished, he posed several incisive questions about the company structure, their partnership agreement, and any existing will or estate planning documents. "What you're describing is unfortunately not uncommon," Wright said finally. "The good news is that you have options as a 50% stakeholder. The challenge will be executing them given your time constraints." Jennifer appreciated his directness. "Tell me everything I can do." For the next hour, Wright outlined various strategies. Jennifer could sell her share now to a third party. She could create a trust to manage her ownership after death with specific instructions about sale conditions. She could potentially even force a complete sale of the company against Bill's wishes by proving certain types of misconduct. "Which brings me to a delicate question," Wright said, leaning forward slightly. "Are you aware of any financial irregularities in the company's operations? Anything that might constitute breach of fiduciary duty?" Jennifer's eyes narrowed as she typed. "Like what?" "Unreported income, improper expense allocations, personal expenses categorized as business costs, tax discrepancies." A memory surfaced, something she had discovered years earlier, but had dismissed out of loyalty to Bill. Using her communication device, she directed Rosa to retrieve a specific file from her home office. The file contained documentation of several small but significant financial irregularities dating back 7 years. Bill had systematically categorized personal expenses as business costs, vacations disguised as research trips, renovation of their home office charged entirely to the company, luxury car leases improperly allocated as business expenses. None of these would be catastrophic individually, Wright observed as he reviewed the documents, but collectively they establish a pattern of financial misconduct that could be leveraged in negotiations. Jennifer's eyes lit with understanding. "Leverage against the sale?" Wright nodded slowly. "More than that. These irregularities could potentially allow us to question his right to make unilateral decisions about the company's future. At minimum, they provide negotiating power." As Wright continued explaining the legal strategy, Jennifer felt a cold clarity settling over her. The man she had once loved, who was now waiting for her to die so he could profit from her absence, had unwittingly provided the tools for his own undoing. When Wright left 3 hours later, Jennifer had a comprehensive plan in place, one that would require careful timing, absolute secrecy, and the kind of meticulous attention to detail that had once made her a formidable business partner. "Are you sure about this?" Rosa asked after showing the attorney out. "It's going to take all your remaining strength." Jennifer's eyes moved deliberately to her communication device. The synthetic voice that emerged carried more determination than any human voice could have conveyed. "Bill thinks my story ends with him selling my company and running off with Amanda. I'm going to write a different ending." The dance of deception began in earnest the following week. Bill announced he would be traveling to Chicago for 3 days to meet with potential Midwest distributors. Jennifer recognized the lie immediately. She had overheard him confirming a romantic getaway with Amanda at a resort in Sedona, not a business trip to Illinois. "I'll have my cell if there's an emergency," Bill told Rosa, not bothering to address Jennifer directly. "But try not to disturb me unless it's absolutely necessary. These meetings are crucial for our expansion." The moment his car disappeared down the driveway, Jennifer's plan activated. Rosa helped her prepare for Thomas Wright's arrival, positioning her wheelchair in the home office and arranging the documents they had secretly compiled. "He's completely unaware," Rosa observed, as she adjusted Jennifer's communication device. "He doesn't even consider you a threat anymore." Jennifer's eyes conveyed what her failing body could not, a mixture of determination and grim satisfaction. She typed quickly, the synthesized voice reflecting none of the emotion behind her words. "His greatest mistake is underestimating me because of this body." Wright arrived with his associate, a young paralegal, who immediately began documenting the contents of Jennifer's files. For the next several hours, they constructed the framework of a legal strategy that would protect Jennifer's interests and, more importantly, her legacy. The first step is ensuring you have clear mental capacity documentation, Wright explained. We'll need a comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation to establish that while your body is affected by ALS, your cognitive functions remain intact. Jennifer nodded. This was the foundation everything else would build upon. Then we'll approach Southwestern Medical Solutions about purchasing your 50% stake, Wright continued. They've been interested in acquiring specialized respiratory equipment manufacturers for years. Your technology patents alone would be worth their investment. The plan was elegantly simple in concept, but complex in execution. Sell Jennifer's half of the company before her death, ensuring the proceeds went exactly where she wanted them. The difficulty lay in the timing and secrecy. If Bill discovered their plan before it was executed, he could potentially create legal obstacles. "What about my will?" Jennifer typed. "We'll rewrite it completely," Wright assured her, "and we'll create a trust for the proceeds from the company sale with very specific disbursement instructions." By the time Bill returned from his Chicago trip, tanned from the Arizona sun and carrying a small Sedona gift shop bag he quickly hid in his briefcase, the first phase of Jennifer's plan was already in motion. Over the next 6 weeks, Jennifer and Wright met whenever Bill was away, which became increasingly frequent as his relationship with Amanda intensified. Each of his absences created another opportunity to advance their strategy. The neuropsychological evaluation was conducted by Dr. Melissa Patel, a specialist in cognitive assessment for patients with neurodegenerative conditions. She spent 4 hours with Jennifer, administering tests designed to measure everything from memory and problem-solving to judgment and decision-making capacity. "Your cognitive functions are completely intact, Mrs. Anderson," Dr. Patel concluded. "In fact, your performance on several of the executive function assessments was exceptional, in the top percentile for your age group." Jennifer's eyes showed no surprise. She had always trusted her mind, even as her body betrayed her. The official documentation of her mental competence was another piece of armor in the battle ahead. While Jennifer methodically built her case, Bill and Amanda grew increasingly careless in their planning. Their conversations about the future now happened openly in the house when they thought Jennifer was resting or Rosa was out. "The Las Vegas location is perfect," Amanda gushed one evening in the kitchen. "Right near the medical district, with access to every major hospital and casino healthcare facility." "And the penthouse I showed you," Bill added. "Top floor, views of the entire strip. I can already see us hosting parties there," Amanda replied. "Entertaining the right people, building our network." "Our network," Bill repeated, the pleasure in his voice palpable. "God, I can't wait to start fresh. No more baggage, no more pretending." Each overheard conversation was another wound, but Jennifer transformed the pain into resolve. While they planned the future they assumed was inevitable, she was systematically ensuring it would never materialize. The courtship of Southwestern Medical Solutions required delicacy and discretion. Wright arranged for their CEO, Michael Lawson, to visit Jennifer under the guise of a charitable foundation consultation. To maintain secrecy, they met at Wright's office during another of Bill's business trips. Rosa helped Jennifer prepare meticulously for the meeting, ensuring her appearance was as professional as her circumstances allowed. Despite her physical deterioration, Jennifer insisted on wearing a tailored blazer over her medical equipment, a small but significant assertion of her business identity. Lawson, a shrewd executive in his 50s with a reputation for tough but ethical business practices, spoke directly to Jennifer rather than around her, something she had come to appreciate as her illness progressed. "Your respiratory technology patents are impressive," he acknowledged after reviewing the portfolio Wright had prepared, particularly the ergonomic ventilator interface design. "That alone would justify our interest." Jennifer typed carefully, the synthesized voice delivering her practiced pitch. "Beyond patents, you're acquiring 15 years of supplier relationships, hospital contracts, and brand reputation. The Anderson name means quality in medical equipment throughout the Southwest." "The Anderson name," Lawson repeated thoughtfully. "That's actually one of my concerns. Your husband would retain his half of the company, at least initially. Working with him as a partner could be complicated." Jennifer's eyes met Wright's, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "My husband will likely sell his share once I've sold mine," Jennifer's device stated flatly. "He has other plans that require liquidating his assets." Wright smoothly elaborated, "Our intelligence suggests he's already in preliminary talks with potential buyers. Once Mrs. Anderson's sale is complete, he'll have little choice but to negotiate with you or accept you as a partner." Lawson leaned back, considering. "And your asking price?" $2.8 million for my 50%, Jennifer's synthesized voice announced. "Below market value for a quick, clean transaction." The negotiation that followed was brief but intense. By the end of the meeting, they had a framework agreement. Southwestern would purchase Jennifer's half of the company for the full asking price, with a confidentiality clause preventing disclosure of the sale until after the transaction was complete. As Lawson left, he paused beside Jennifer's wheelchair. "Mrs. Anderson, I admire what you've built. We'll protect that legacy." It wasn't until he was gone that Jennifer allowed herself a moment of silent triumph. Phase 2 was now in motion. As the legal work progressed, the relationship between Jennifer and Rosa deepened beyond caregiver and patient. During the long nights when pain kept Jennifer awake, Rosa would sit with her, sometimes reading aloud from Jennifer's favorite books, sometimes simply providing silent companionship. "Why did you become a hospice nurse?" Jennifer asked one night through her device. Rosa was quiet for a moment, arranging Jennifer's pillows to ease her discomfort. "My mother had pancreatic cancer when I was 22. The hospice nurse who cared for her showed me that even when medicine can't heal, there's still profound care to be given." "That's a beautiful reason," Jennifer replied. "She taught me that dying isn't just a medical event. It's a human one," Rosa continued. "Everyone deserves dignity and agency in how they leave this world." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears that Rosa gently wiped away. "That's what I'm fighting for now," her device voiced. "Agency. Control over what I built, even after I'm gone." "And you'll have it," Rosa promised. "We're making sure of that." It was during these quiet conversations that Jennifer finally shared the full extent of her plan for the proceeds from the company sale. "I want the money to fund ALS research," she explained. "Not just any research, but specifically work on assistive technology and quality of life improvements. The kind of innovations that let people like me keep their voice and dignity." Rosa nodded, understanding completely. "A way to turn this experience into something meaningful for others." "Exactly," Jennifer confirmed, "and I want you to oversee it." Rosa looked up, startled. "Me? But I'm not—" "You understand both the medical and human sides of this disease," Jennifer interrupted. "You've seen firsthand what patients need. There are plenty of financial managers who can handle the money, but I need someone who cares about the mission." The trust in Jennifer's eyes was unmistakable, and Rosa found herself nodding slowly. "I would be honored," she said softly. "But let's not talk as if you're already gone." Jennifer's thin smile acknowledged the reality they both understood. Her time was indeed growing short. The progression of her disease had accelerated in recent weeks. Her breathing was now assisted by a portable ventilator, and swallowing had become increasingly difficult. Yet as her physical capabilities diminished, her mental resolve only strengthened. Each completed legal document, each signed agreement, each finalized arrangement was another piece of protection around the legacy she refused to surrender. The final component of Jennifer's plan was perhaps the most personal, the letter to be read at her funeral. She worked on it late at night when the house was quiet, carefully constructing each sentence to ensure her message would be unmistakable. "Are you sure you want to be this direct?" Wright asked when she shared the draft with him during their final meeting. "It's unsparing." Jennifer's eyes hardened as she typed her response. "They showed no mercy to me. Why should I offer it to them?" Wright nodded, understanding. "It's your right. I'll ensure it's read exactly as written." With the letter finalized and entrusted to Wright's safekeeping, Jennifer turned to the last details of her plan. The Trust for the Research Foundation was established with Rosa named as the executive director. The sale agreement with Southwestern Medical Solutions was signed and notarized, with the transaction scheduled to execute 3 days before what Jennifer's doctors predicted would be the outer limit of her life expectancy. Everything was in place. A meticulous chess game where all the pieces were positioned for a checkmate Bill wouldn't see until it was too late. On a crisp morning in early April, as dawn broke over the desert landscape, Jennifer asked Rosa to position her wheelchair by the window one last time. Her body had dwindled to a shadow of her former self. The ALS having claimed almost all voluntary muscle control, breathing was now fully supported by her ventilator, and communication required tremendous effort even with the eye-tracking device. "It's all done," Rosa confirmed, adjusting the blanket across Jennifer's lap. "Wright called last night after you were asleep. The sale went through. Your share of Anderson and Associates officially belongs to Southwestern Medical Solutions, and the money has been transferred to the Research Trust." Jennifer's eyes closed briefly in a moment of profound relief. She had done it, secured her legacy despite everything Bill had tried to take from her. When she opened her eyes again, she laboriously typed one final message. "Now we wait for the curtain to fall." Rosa took her hand gently. "You've rewritten the ending, Jennifer. Whatever happens next, remember that." Outside, the desert sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the landscape. Within those shadows, Jennifer Anderson waited calmly for the final act of her life to begin, secure in the knowledge that while death might claim her body, her legacy was now forever protected from those who had tried to steal it. April in Phoenix brought perfect blue skies and blooming desert flowers that Jennifer could only experience through the window of her bedroom. The ALS had accelerated aggressively in its final stages, confining her to her bed, the ventilator now a constant companion rather than an occasional support. Her world had contracted to this room, these four walls adorned with photographs from healthier days, reminders of the woman she had been before the disease claimed her body. Dr. Chen visited daily now, her professional demeanor softening with each check of Jennifer's vitals. After one such visit, she took Rosa aside in the hallway, their hushed voices carrying just enough for Jennifer to catch fragments. "Matter of days now. Keep her comfortable. Call me any time, day or night." When Rosa returned, her eyes were rimmed with red, but her hands remained steady as she adjusted Jennifer's medication. "You heard?" Rosa asked softly. Jennifer blinked once, their established signal for yes. "I'm not leaving your side," Rosa promised, her voice thick with emotion. "Not for a minute." Jennifer's eyes conveyed what her body could not: gratitude, fear, resolution, a silent communication that had grown between them over months of care and friendship. Using tremendous effort, Jennifer directed her gaze to the eye-tracking device. The synthesized voice spoke her carefully chosen words. "Bill should know. Call him." Rosa nodded, reaching for her phone. "Where is he this time?" "San Diego, with her." The artificial voice couldn't convey the complex emotions behind those simple words. Not bitterness exactly, but a weary acknowledgement of betrayal that had long since lost its power to wound. 200 miles west in the luxurious oceanfront suite of the Hotel del Coronado, Bill Anderson raised a champagne flute toward the setting sun. Beside him on the balcony, Amanda Taylor mirrored his gesture, her diamond tennis bracelet, his most recent gift, catching the golden light. "To new beginnings," Bill proposed, "and to the Anderson Taylor Medical Supply Corporation." "I still think we should change the name completely," Amanda countered, sipping her champagne. "Fresh start, fresh brand, something with Vegas or Silver State in it." Bill shrugged, his attention captured by the sales projections displayed on his tablet. "We can workshop the name later. What matters is that I've got buyers lined up who are practically salivating over our client list and patents." "Our patents," Amanda corrected with a playful smile. "I'm going to be your partner in every way once this is done." "Absolutely," Bill agreed absently, scrolling through figures. "These Vegas investors are offering $5.2 million cash for the whole operation. No complications, no extended payment schedules. We sign the papers, they wire the money, and we're off to our new life." Amanda moved behind him, massaging his shoulders. "And the timeline?" Bill's expression darkened momentarily. "According to Dr. Chen's last update, it could be any day now. I've already drafted the press release announcing Jennifer's passing. Very respectful, appropriately grieving husband, all that. The lawyers have the succession documents ready. The moment she's gone, her share transfers to me as her husband, and then we sell the whole thing." "It seems cold when you put it like that," Amanda said, a rare flash of discomfort crossing her features. Bill turned to her, his expression hardening. "Business is business, Amanda. Jennifer's been dead to the company for months already. This is just formalizing it." Amanda nodded quickly, the moment of conscience passing as rapidly as it had appeared. She raised her glass again. "To formalizing our future, then." As they clinked glasses, Bill's phone vibrated with an incoming call. He glanced at the screen, frowning slightly. It's Rosa. The nurse. Why would she call during your business trip? Amanda made air quotes around the words. Bill's frown deepened as he answered, stepping away from Amanda. Rosa, what is it? The conversation was brief. When Bill returned to the balcony, his expression was unreadable. Jennifer? Amanda asked, already knowing the answer. Not yet, but close. Days, maybe hours. He stared out at the ocean for a long moment. We should head back tomorrow. Need to maintain appearances. Amanda pouted briefly, but didn't argue. They both understood the importance of the performance. The grieving husband needed to be present for the final act. Back in Phoenix, Rosa maintained her vigil at Jennifer's bedside. She read aloud from Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Jennifer's favorite novel, her voice steady despite the knowledge that these were the final pages of their time together. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you, Rosa read, then paused as Jennifer's eyes moved deliberately to her communication device. Did everything transfer? The mechanical voice couldn't convey urgency, but Rosa understood immediately. Yes, it's all done, she assured Jennifer. Thomas Wright confirmed it yesterday. Southwestern Medical Solutions officially owns your 50% of the company, and the $2.8 million has been transferred to the Research Foundation Trust. It's completely legal and irreversible. Relief washed over Jennifer's gaunt features. This confirmation that her plan had succeeded, that her legacy was secured, seemed to release something within her. Her eyes closed briefly, then opened with renewed clarity. The letter? The synthetic voice inquired. Safe with Wright, Rosa confirmed. He'll read it exactly as you wrote it at the funeral. Bill won't know anything until that moment. Jennifer's lips curved in the barest suggestion of a smile. In the silence that followed, broken only by the rhythmic sounds of the ventilator, she seemed to be gathering her remaining strength for what she wanted to say next. Thank you. The words appeared on the screen before the voice synthesizer spoke them. For everything. For seeing me, not just the disease. Rosa took Jennifer's hand carefully, mindful of the IV line. It's been my honor to know you, Jennifer. You're the strongest person I've ever met. They sat together as twilight deepened into night, the desert stars emerging one by one outside the window. Neither mentioned Bill's impending return or the inevitability of what was coming. Instead, Rosa continued reading, providing the simple comfort of words and presence in these final hours. The next morning brought a crystalline desert dawn and the sound of a car in the driveway. Bill returning from San Diego. Jennifer was awake, her night having been restless despite increased medication. Her breathing had grown more labored, requiring adjustments to the ventilator settings throughout the night. Rosa met Bill in the hallway, preventing him from immediately entering the bedroom. She's very weak, she informed him quietly. The doctor says it's a matter of hours now. Bill nodded, his face arranging itself into an expression of appropriate concern. I'll sit with her for a while. She's been asking for you, Rosa lied, giving him the opportunity to be the devoted husband one last time, a final chance at decency that she doubted he would take. Inside the bedroom, Bill approached Jennifer's bed with measured steps. If he was shocked by her appearance, the profound wasting of her muscles, the grey pallor of her skin, he hid it well. He took her hand perfunctorily, careful not to disturb the medical equipment. Jennifer, he said, his voice pitched to a gentle tone that didn't reach his eyes. I came as soon as I heard. The San Diego meetings were important, but, well, I'm here now. Jennifer's gaze was steady, unblinking. There was no communication device in sight. Rosa had deliberately removed it, knowing Jennifer didn't want to speak to Bill in these final hours. Uncomfortable with her silent stare, Bill filled the void with platitudes. The company's doing well, everyone sends their best wishes. I've been making sure everything runs smoothly so you don't have to worry. Still no response. Just those knowing eyes, seeing through every pretense. After 10 excruciating minutes of one-sided conversation, Bill checked his watch. I should let you rest. I've got some calls to make. Keeping the business running, you know. He squeezed her hand mechanically and retreated, relief evident in his posture as he closed the door behind him. Once he was gone, Rosa returned with the communication device. He's in his office on the phone with Amanda, she reported, having overheard his hushed conversation in the hallway. Jennifer's eyes moved to the device. It's time, the synthetic voice announced. I'm ready. Rosa's professional composure cracked slightly. Are you sure? The doctor could increase your pain medication, make you more comfortable. No more waiting, Jennifer insisted through the device. My body is ready to let go. My mind has done what it needed to do. Rosa nodded, understanding. She adjusted Jennifer's position, ensuring her comfort, then sat beside her, taking her hand. What can I do? Just stay, came the simple request. And after, remember. I will, Rosa promised. Your legacy is safe. I'll make sure of it. The hours that followed passed in peaceful silence. Jennifer's breathing gradually slowed, her systems shutting down one by one as the ALS completed its relentless course. At 2:17 that afternoon, with Rosa still holding her hand, Jennifer Marie Anderson took her final breath. The room fell silent as the ventilator alarm sounded briefly before Rosa switched it off. In that moment of transition, Rosa could have sworn she saw a final look of peace settle over Jennifer's features, the completion of a journey that had been defined not by the disease that took her body, but by the strength of will that had protected what she valued most. Bill was on a conference call when Rosa knocked at his office door. He held up one finger, indicating she should wait, and continued discussing projected quarterly earnings with someone on the other end of the line. Rosa stood silently, her face composed but her eyes red-rimmed. When Bill finally acknowledged her with an impatient, "What is it?" she delivered the news with simple dignity. Jennifer passed away at 2:17 this afternoon. She went peacefully. Bill froze momentarily, then nodded. I understand. Thank you for letting me know. I'll need to make some calls. Dr. Chen has already been notified. She'll be here shortly to complete the death certificate, Rosa added professionally. And I believe you have funeral arrangements to make. Yes, of course, Bill replied, already reaching for his phone. I'll handle everything. As Rosa turned to leave, she caught his reflection in the window, the subtle release of tension in his shoulders, the quick glance at his watch as he calculated next steps. Not grief, but relief and anticipation. One more thing, Rosa said, pausing at the door. Jennifer asked that the funeral be held at Desert View Cemetery. She always admired the mountain views there. Bill nodded absently, already dialing a number, Amanda's, Rosa suspected, his mind clearly racing ahead to the future he thought was now secured. After closing the door, Rosa leaned against the wall momentarily, allowing herself a brief moment of grief before composing herself again. She had promises to keep to Jennifer, promises that would ensure Bill's victory was short-lived. The next 48 hours unfolded in a blur of activity. Bill, suddenly the model of a grieving widower, made arrangements for a tasteful service at Desert View Cemetery. He notified board members, business associates, and local media with practiced solemnity. In private, however, his actions told a different story. Rosa observed him late at night in his home office, organizing documents for the company's sale. Property deeds, patent certificates, client contracts, all neatly arranged in a leather portfolio embossed with his initials. On the evening before the funeral, Bill received a visit from his attorney. Not Thomas Wright, but a corporate lawyer from a prestigious Phoenix firm who specialized in business acquisitions. They spent 3 hours reviewing paperwork, their voices occasionally rising enough for Rosa to catch fragments about succession and transfer of ownership and buyers in Las Vegas. Later that night, after the lawyer had gone, Amanda arrived. Despite the circumstance, she wore a tight black dress more appropriate for a cocktail party than a condolence visit, carrying an overnight bag that suggested she didn't plan to leave. Everything's set, Bill told her, as they shared a bottle of expensive scotch in his office. The funeral's tomorrow at 11. Wright will read the will afterward. Standard procedure, nothing to worry about. By tomorrow night, I'll legally control 100% of the company. The Vegas group is ready with the paperwork and the wire transfer. This time next week, we'll be celebrating in our new penthouse. Are you sure there won't be any complications? Amanda asked, swirling the amber liquid in her glass. Bill laughed, the sound jarring in a house ostensibly in mourning. What complications could there be? Jennifer's gone. Her share passes to me automatically. It's all very straightforward. Amanda raised her glass in a toast. 2 straightforward endings and new beginnings. Neither of them noticed Rosa silently closing the door as she passed by, a small knowing smile on her lips as she thought of the sealed envelope in Thomas Wright's possession and the very different ending Jennifer had written for them all. Desert View Cemetery lived up to its name on the morning of Jennifer Anderson's funeral. The sprawling grounds, meticulously landscaped with native desert plants and smooth stone pathways, offered panoramic views of the Phoenix Mountains Preserve. The spring sun cast a golden glow across the landscape, warming the cool morning air as black-clad figures began to arrive for the 11 a.m. service. The funeral home had arranged a tasteful outdoor setting beneath a white canopy that fluttered gently in the desert breeze. Rows of chairs faced a simple mahogany casket, adorned with a spray of white lilies and desert blooms. A large photograph of Jennifer, taken 3 years earlier at a company anniversary celebration, her smile radiant and confident, stood on an easel beside the casket, a cruel contrast to the ravaged body that ALS had left behind. Employees of Anderson and Associates arrived first, gathering in small groups to share memories of their co-founder. Board members followed, their expressions appropriately somber as they greeted each other with hushed voices and firm handshakes. Several of Jennifer's former Stanford classmates made appearances, as did representatives from local hospitals and medical facilities that had been long-time clients. Thomas Wright arrived early, dressed in an impeccable charcoal suit, carrying a leather portfolio containing the documents that would soon shatter the carefully constructed plans of Bill Anderson. He positioned himself discreetly toward the back of the gathering, observing the arrivals with keen eyes that missed nothing. At precisely 10:50 a.m., a sleek black Audi pulled into the cemetery's circular drive. Bill Anderson emerged from the driver's side, his tailored black suit and perfectly knotted tie presenting the very image of the bereaved widower. He paused, straightening his cuffs before walking around to open the passenger door. Amanda Taylor stepped out, her hand immediately finding Bill's as if it belonged there. She wore a designer black dress that managed to be both funeral appropriate and flattering, her blonde hair pulled back in a tasteful chignon. A large pair of sunglasses concealed her eyes, but not the slight smile that played at the corners of her mouth as she surveyed the gathering. Their joined hands did not go unnoticed. Whispers rippled through the assembled mourners, heads turning to observe the widow and his companion, with expressions ranging from shock to distaste. A board member's wife audibly gasped, quickly silenced by her husband's warning squeeze of her arm. Rosa Martinez, who had arrived earlier to ensure everything was arranged according to Jennifer's wishes, watched from near the casket. Unlike the others, her reaction showed no surprise, only a calm certainty, as if witnessing the unfolding of events exactly as predicted. Bill guided Amanda to the front row of chairs, apparently oblivious to or unconcerned by the stir their entrance had caused. They sat close together, his arm casually draped across the back of her chair in a gesture of intimacy that seemed jarringly out of place at his wife's funeral. A leather portfolio identical to Wright's rested on Bill's lap, the documents for the company sale, ready for execution immediately following the service. The funeral director, a solemn man with carefully practiced expressions of sympathy, approached to indicate they were ready to begin. Bill nodded, assuming his role as the grieving husband with an abrupt shift in demeanor, straightening his posture, removing his arm from Amanda's chair, and arranging his features into an expression of appropriate sorrow. The service proceeded with practiced efficiency. A local minister whom Jennifer had never met delivered generic platitudes about life, death, and legacy. Bill declined to speak, citing emotional distress, though his frequent glances at his watch suggested impatience rather than grief. A single colleague from the company offered brief remarks about Jennifer's dedication to excellence, though the speech notably focused more on the company's achievements than on Jennifer herself. Throughout the ceremony, Rosa remained standing slightly apart from the seated mourners, her posture straight and dignified, despite her evident emotional exhaustion from the past days. She had been Jennifer's true companion in death, just as Bill had abandoned her in life, a reality not lost on many of the attendees who had witnessed Jennifer's decline and Bill's increasing absence. As the minister concluded his final prayer, Bill shifted forward in his seat, clearly eager for the proceedings to move toward their conclusion. The portfolio on his lap seemed to command more of his attention than the casket before him. "Before we conclude today's service," the funeral director announced, "Mr. Thomas Wright has requested a moment to address some immediate matters regarding Mrs. Anderson's estate." Bill's head snapped up, surprise momentarily displacing his practiced grief. "Right," he muttered to Amanda. "Jennifer's old corporate attorney, what's he doing here?" Amanda shrugged slightly, adjusting her sunglasses. "Probably just a formality." Thomas Wright approached the small podium with measured steps, placing his leather portfolio precisely before him. His expression revealed nothing as he surveyed the gathering, his gaze lingering momentarily on Bill and Amanda in the front row. "Thank you all for coming to honor Jennifer Anderson's life and legacy," Wright began, his resonant voice carrying clearly across the cemetery grounds. "As Mrs. Anderson's personal attorney, I've been entrusted with several matters that she requested be addressed immediately following her service." Bill's posture stiffened, a flicker of unease crossing his features. This was not part of his carefully orchestrated plan. "First," Wright continued, "regarding Anderson and Associates medical equipment." He paused, allowing the company name to hang in the air. "There are some ownership changes that must be announced." The murmur that rippled through the crowd was silenced by Bill's sharp voice. "Excuse me, Mr. Wright, but as Jennifer's husband and co-founder, any company matters should be directed to me first. This is hardly the appropriate venue." Wright regarded Bill with a cool professionalism that barely concealed his distaste. "On the contrary, Mr. Anderson, Mrs. Anderson explicitly requested that these matters be addressed publicly, immediately following her funeral. I am simply honoring my client's wishes." Before Bill could protest further, Wright opened his portfolio and withdrew a document bearing official seals. 3 days ago, Mrs. Anderson executed the legal sale of her 50% ownership in Anderson and Associates medical equipment to Southwestern Medical Solutions for the sum of $2.8 million. The collective gasp from the assembled mourners was audible. Bill froze, his face a mask of shock and confusion. "That's impossible," he finally managed, rising from his chair. Jennifer was terminally ill. She couldn't have made legal decisions. Mrs. Anderson underwent comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation before executing the sale, Wright countered smoothly, producing another document. Dr. Melissa Patel certified her as fully competent to make business and financial decisions. The evaluation specifically noted her exceptional executive function and decision-making capacity, despite her physical limitations. Bill's face flushed with anger as he advanced toward the podium. "This is fraud. She couldn't even speak or write." Mrs. Anderson utilized assistive communication technology, as documented and witnessed by multiple parties, Wright replied, unmoved by Bill's growing agitation. "The sale is completely legal and binding. The transaction was finalized and recorded with the Arizona Secretary of State's office 72 hours ago." Amanda had risen to stand beside Bill, her sunglasses now removed to reveal eyes wide with alarm. "Bill," she whispered urgently, "what does this mean?" Wright answered before Bill could respond. "It means, Miss Taylor, that Mr. Anderson no longer has unilateral control over the company. He owns 50%, while Southwestern Medical Solutions owns the other 50%. Any sale of the entire company would now require their approval." Bill's portfolio dropped to the ground, papers spilling across the cemetery grass. "The Vegas deal," he muttered, his voice hollow, "would be impossible to execute without the consent of the new co-owner," Wright confirmed with clinical precision. The gathered mourners watched the scene unfold with a mixture of confusion and growing understanding. Several board members exchanged knowing glances, pieces falling into place. Jennifer's gradual exclusion from the company, Bill's increasingly public relationship with Amanda, the rumors of sale negotiations. "The money," Bill demanded suddenly, grasping at one last hope. "As Jennifer's husband, I'm entitled to her estate. The proceeds from this alleged sale would pass to me." Wright's slight smile suggested he had anticipated this exact argument. "That brings me to the second matter I'm required to address today." He produced another document from his portfolio. Prior to her death, Mrs. Anderson established the Jennifer Anderson Foundation for ALS Research, with the full proceeds from the company sale transferred directly to this foundation's trust. Bill staggered slightly, his carefully constructed future collapsing around him. "She can't do that. I have rights." Mrs. Anderson had every legal right to sell her company shares and direct the proceeds as she wished, Wright interrupted firmly. "The foundation was established as an irrevocable trust with specific disbursement instructions. The $2.8 million has already been transferred and is legally protected from any claims against Mrs. Anderson's estate." A murmur of appreciation rippled through the gathering. Even in death, Jennifer had found a way to create meaning from her suffering. Wright turned slightly, gesturing toward Rosa, who stepped forward with quiet dignity. Mrs. Anderson appointed Rosa Martinez as the executive director of the foundation. Ms. Martinez, would you like to share the foundation's mission? Rosa moved to stand beside Wright, her voice steady despite the emotion evident in her eyes. Jennifer wanted her legacy to help others facing ALS, she explained. The foundation will direct $2.5 million to fund research focused on assistive technology development and quality of life improvements for ALS patients. The remaining funds will establish a support program for families dealing with the financial and emotional burden of the disease. The attendees nodded appreciatively, several wiping away tears. In this final act, they recognized the Jennifer they had known before illness and marriage had diminished her. Strategic, compassionate, forward-thinking. Bill's shock had hardened into fury. "This is a conspiracy," he hissed, looking between Wright and Rosa. "You took advantage of a dying woman to steal what should rightfully be mine." "On the contrary," Wright replied evenly. "Mrs. Anderson was protecting what was rightfully hers from someone who had already demonstrated his intentions to dispose of her legacy for personal gain." Amanda tugged at Bill's arm, clearly uncomfortable with the public spectacle unfolding. "Bill, maybe we should discuss this privately. There's one final matter," Wright continued, cutting off Amanda's attempt at retreat. He withdrew a sealed envelope from his portfolio. "Mrs. Anderson left a letter to be read publicly at her funeral. She was quite specific about the audience." Bill froze, a flicker of dread crossing his features. "That's not necessary." "Mrs. Anderson instructed that both you and Ms. Taylor should be present for this reading," Wright continued, as if Bill hadn't spoken. "I see that condition has been met." The cemetery fell silent as Wright broke the seal on the envelope and unfolded the letter within. His voice was clear and measured as he read Jennifer's final message. "To those gathered to mark my passing, and specifically to my husband Bill and his companion Amanda Taylor, while you planned for my death, I planned for my legacy. You believed my illness rendered me powerless, but in my final months I found strength I never knew I possessed. Bill, when you married me 17 years ago, you promised to stand by me in sickness and in health. Instead, you saw my illness as an inconvenience and an opportunity. You systematically pushed me out of the company we built together, rewrote our history to erase my contributions, and waited impatiently for my death so you could claim what we created as yours alone. Amanda, you chose to build your future on the suffering of someone you barely knew. You entered my home, sat at my table, and plotted to dismantle my life's work while I was still living. You convinced yourself that my illness made me less than human, someone whose life and legacy could be discarded without consequence. To both of you, you made plans for my future without including me, so I made plans for your future without including you. The company you planned to sell for your new life together is now partially owned by your biggest competitor. The money you expected to fund your escape to Las Vegas will instead help others facing the disease you found so inconvenient. This is not revenge but justice. My company will continue its mission of creating medical equipment that improves lives. My money will fund research that may spare others the indignities I faced, and you will be left with the knowledge that in underestimating me because of my illness, you made the greatest miscalculation of your lives. To everyone else who truly cared for me, thank you for your friendship and support. Remember me not as a victim of disease or betrayal, but as someone who refused to allow others to determine her worth or legacy. With final resolve, Jennifer Marie Anderson. The silence that followed the reading was absolute. Board members and employees stared at Bill with newfound understanding and barely concealed contempt. Amanda had backed away slightly, her face pale with the public exposure of their relationship and plans. Bill stood frozen, the careful facade of grieving husband shattered beyond repair. The whispers began around him, spreading through the gathering like wildfire. His reputation in the Phoenix business community, built over 15 years, was disintegrating in real time. "This is slander," he finally managed, his voice lacking conviction. "She wasn't in her right mind. The neuropsychological evaluation suggests otherwise," Wright replied calmly, "as do the meticulously documented financial irregularities Mrs. Anderson compiled before her death. Personal expenses charged to the company, unreported income, tax discrepancies dating back 7 years. All documented and ready to be shared with the appropriate authorities should you choose to contest any aspect of these arrangements." Bill blanched, suddenly aware of the depth of Jennifer's preparation. She hadn't just protected her legacy, she had armed it with evidence of his own misconduct. Amanda was already retreating, moving away from Bill toward the cemetery exit, her self-preservation instincts evidently stronger than whatever attachment she had formed to him. "Amanda," Bill called, reaching for her retreating figure. "Wait." She shook her head slightly, avoiding his touch. "Not now, Bill. Not here." Her eyes darted around at the watching crowd, calculating the damage to her own reputation and future prospects. As the reality of his situation crystallized, Bill's shoulders slumped in defeat. The portfolio containing his sale documents, now useless, lay scattered and forgotten on the grass. The future he had planned while waiting for Jennifer to die had evaporated, replaced by a very different reality, shaped by the woman he had underestimated until the very end. Rosa moved to stand beside Jennifer's casket, placing a single white rose atop the polished wood. The gesture was simple but profound, a final acknowledgement of a promise kept, a friendship honored, a legacy secured. The gathered mourners began to disperse, many approaching Rosa to offer support for the foundation or to share memories of Jennifer. Board members huddled together, already discussing the implications of Southwestern Medical Solutions' partial ownership. Through it all, Bill stood isolated in the growing emptiness around him, the architect of his own undoing. As the cemetery staff prepared to conclude the service, Thomas Wright approached Bill one last time. "Mrs. Anderson asked me to tell you something else privately," he said, his voice low enough that only Bill could hear. "She said to remind you that the company name, Anderson and Associates, will remain unchanged. She wanted you to see her name on the building every day, to remember what you lost through your own actions." With those final words, Wright closed his portfolio and walked away, leaving Bill alone with the consequences of his betrayal and the enduring power of the woman he had failed to honor in life, but who had ensured he would never forget her in death. The aftermath of Jennifer Anderson's funeral reverberated through the Phoenix business community with the force of a desert thunderstorm. By the following morning, the story had spread beyond the medical equipment industry to become the cautionary tale discussed in executive boardrooms, country club lounges, and business school seminars throughout Arizona. For Bill Anderson, the consequences were swift and merciless. The Las Vegas investors withdrew their offer immediately upon learning of the ownership complications. Southwestern Medical Solutions, now holding 50% of Anderson and Associates, used their position to demand a complete audit of the company's finances, an investigation that quickly uncovered the full extent of Bill's financial misconduct over the years. Faced with the threat of criminal charges for tax evasion and misappropriation of company funds, Bill was forced into a corner. Michael Lawson, CEO of Southwestern, presented him with two options: a prolonged legal battle that would likely end in conviction, or a swift sale of his remaining 50% ownership at a significantly reduced price. "We're prepared to offer $1.5 million for your share," Lawson stated during a tense meeting in what had once been Bill's corner office. "Considering the legal exposure you're facing, I'd call that generous." Bill stared at the offer sheet, the figure nearly 60% less than what the Las Vegas group had been willing to pay. "This is highway robbery," he protested weakly. "No, Mr. Anderson," Lawson replied coolly. "Robbery is charging personal vacations to your company accounts while your dying wife was pushed out of the business she helped build. This is simply market correction." 3 days later, Bill signed the sale agreement. The once proud co-founder of Anderson and Associates left the building carrying only a small box of personal items, avoiding the eyes of employees who had once feared his authority but now viewed him with undisguised contempt. Amanda Taylor's loyalty proved as substantial as her ethics. 2 weeks after the funeral, she ended their relationship via text message while Bill was meeting with his criminal defense attorney. "This isn't what I signed up for," she wrote. "The situation is too complicated, and I need to protect my professional reputation. I wish you the best with your challenges ahead." By then, Amanda had already leveraged her connections to secure a position with a healthcare consulting firm in San Francisco, geographically and professionally distant from the scandal in Phoenix. She had calculated correctly that her youth and the perception of her as a manipulated party, rather than primary architect, would allow her a second chance that Bill would never receive. Left with $1.5 million, minus mounting legal fees, his reputation in tatters, and no partner either personal or professional, Bill did eventually make it to Las Vegas, not as the triumphant entrepreneur he had envisioned, but as a diminished figure seeking anonymity in a city famously indifferent to personal failures. He purchased a modest condominium in a development far from the glamorous strip he had once imagined as his playground. His attempts to re-establish himself in the medical equipment industry met with polite but firm rejections. The story had followed him, enhanced with each retelling, until Bill Anderson had become a business parable about hubris, betrayal, and karmic justice. Meanwhile, back in Phoenix, the Jennifer Anderson Foundation for ALS Research took shape under Rosa Martinez's dedicated leadership. The foundation established 3 primary initiatives: research grants for assistive technology development, a family support program providing financial assistance and respite care, and an advocacy campaign to increase awareness of ALS patients' needs. Rosa approached her role with the same commitment and compassion she had shown as Jennifer's caregiver. She assembled a board of directors that included medical professionals, technology innovators, and family members of ALS patients. Dr. Chen, who had treated Jennifer, became the foundation's medical advisor, providing crucial guidance on which research proposals showed the most promise for improving patients' quality of life. The foundation's first major grant funded the development of an advanced eye-tracking communication system specifically designed for late-stage ALS patients. The technology, more responsive and intuitive than existing options, allowed users to communicate with minimal eye movement, preserving their voice and agency even as the disease progressed. Jennifer always said that losing her voice was worse than losing her mobility, Rosa explained during the technology's unveiling at the Mayo Clinic. This system ensures that no one with ALS needs to feel silenced or erased. The second initiative, the Family Support Program, provided financial assistance to families struggling with the overwhelming costs of ALS care. Beyond monetary support, the program offered practical help, trained respite caregivers, home modification consultations, and peer support groups. These services addressed the isolation and exhaustion that Jennifer had observed in other ALS families during her own journey. Within 2 years, the foundation's impact extended far beyond Arizona. Medical journals published research funded by Jennifer's grants. Families across the country received support that allowed them to focus on quality time rather than financial stress. Most significantly, the advocacy campaign helped shift public perception of ALS patients from objects of pity to individuals deserving dignity, agency, and continued inclusion in society. 3 years after Jennifer's death, a breakthrough occurred that no one could have anticipated. Dr. Sophia Patel, a neurologist whose research had been funded by one of the foundation's earliest grants, developed a neural interface that dramatically improved communication abilities for ALS patients. The device, smaller and more effective than previous technologies, allowed for more natural expression of complex thoughts and emotions. We called it the Jennifer interface because it embodies what she fought for: the right to maintain one's voice and identity in the face of a disease that tries to take both, Dr. Patel explained during the press conference announcing the technology. The first recipients of the device reported life-changing improvements in their ability to connect with loved ones and participate in their communities. One patient, a former English professor, was able to resume teaching online classes. Another, a young mother, could communicate more effectively with her children. At the formal dedication of the Jennifer interface at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, Rosa stood before an audience of medical professionals, patients, and media representatives. The foundation had grown beyond anything she or Jennifer could have imagined, with research grants now exceeding $5 million annually through additional fundraising and partnerships. Jennifer Anderson faced 2 devastating realities, Rosa told the gathered crowd: a disease that tried to silence her body and people who tried to erase her legacy. She defeated both through determination, strategic thinking, and an unwavering belief that her life and work mattered. The audience included several former Anderson and Associates employees who had since joined Southwestern Medical Solutions, bringing Jennifer's innovative approach to medical equipment design with them. The respiratory line she had pioneered had been expanded and improved, now including features specifically designed to enhance quality of life for patients with neurodegenerative diseases. Jennifer's story teaches us that true character reveals itself Not when everything is going well, but in how we respond to our most difficult challenges, Rosa continued. She transformed her personal tragedy into hope for countless others, ensuring that her final chapter would be defined not by what was taken from her, but by what she chose to give. 600 miles away, in a sparsely furnished Las Vegas apartment, Bill Anderson watched the press conference live stream on his laptop. Now 51, with deeper lines etched into his face and gray hair that had lost its distinguished appeal, he barely resembled the confident businessman who had once commanded respect throughout the Southwest. He had tried and failed to launch 2 new ventures. His remaining money had dwindled through poor investments and the ongoing costs of maintaining appearances. The women he dated now were nothing like Amanda or Jennifer. They were transient companions, drawn to his increasingly desperate displays of faded wealth. As he watched Rosa unveil the Jennifer interface, surrounded by medical professionals and grateful patients, the contrast between Jennifer's legacy and his current reality struck him with painful clarity. She had built something lasting from the worst experience of her life, while he had squandered everything through greed and betrayal. The laptop screen showed a demonstration of the new device, a young woman with advanced ALS using the Jennifer interface to deliver a poem she had composed. Her synthesized voice filled Bill's empty apartment. They said my voice was fading, that silence would be my end. But words find ways of lasting beyond what bodies can defend. Bill closed the laptop slowly, unable to bear the weight of the moment. He moved to the window of his 10th floor apartment, looking out at the Las Vegas skyline, the glittering promise of wealth and excitement that had once featured so prominently in his fantasies with Amanda. On his kitchen counter lay a stack of past due notices and a letter from his last remaining attorney terminating their relationship due to unpaid fees. His phone hadn't rung in days. The business contacts who once returned his calls immediately now directed him to assistants who politely took messages that were never answered. As twilight settled over the desert city, Bill Anderson stood alone with the ghostly echo of his ex-wife's final message to him. You made plans for my future without including me, so I made plans for your future without including you. Jennifer had written her own ending, one that extended far beyond her physical life. And in doing so, she had written his as well, not through vengeance, but through the simple, devastating power of justice served with perfect timing and unimpeachable dignity. In her final act, Jennifer Anderson had proven what Bill had failed to recognize throughout their marriage, that true strength lies not in domination or deception, but in the quiet, determined protection of what matters most, one's principles, purpose, and legacy. The Las Vegas lights began to sparkle against the darkening sky, illuminating nothing but possibilities that would forever remain beyond his reach. If this story touched your heart, and you want to keep following inspiring and moving stories, be sure to check out our upcoming videos. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated on new content that can brighten your journey and provide valuable insights. Join us and keep exploring stories that truly matter. I'm sure the next video that pops up on your screen will touch you as well, so click on it now, and we'll see you there.